everyone. So for this week, you are working on the strategic plan for your final project. In your strategic plan, you are going to be laying out your recommendations for how you are going to address the issue you identified. How are you going to improve things for the target population? How might you improve your workplace or your community? What are the actions you are going to take? In your strategic plan, you should identify the goals of your plan. That will drive the rest of the strategic plan. You need to know what goals you're working on. One model that I recommend looking at for setting your goals are SMART goals. These are specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound. So this means that, instead of saying that you are going to make sure that all transgender people feel welcome at your emergency room, which is not very specific, not measurable, and probably not very realistic. You might say that you are going to make sure that there are gender neutral restrooms available at the ER by the end of the year. That would be a very specific, measurable goal, actionable, and time-bound, and relevant to the population, relevant to the goal, your issue. Once you have your goals, you're going to make recommendations for how you're going to address the current issue. And again, think specifically. As I've said over and over again, I would much rather you have a modest but concrete, well thought out, actionable strategic plan with very specific tactics, rather than something that's very ambitious but abstract and unrealistic. So when you're thinking about what your strategies are going to be, think about what can you actually do that would make a positive impact in your community or in your workplace. Also, make sure that you are describing your recommendations, not just listing them. How are you actually going to put these things into action? So, for example, a very popular strategy is workshops or trainings. Okay, and those are a very good strategy for a lot of issues. But you need to know what the goals of the workshop or training would be, who's going to attend, how much time will it take, will it be done on work time or outside of work time, how are you going to ensure that people come, how would you evaluate the success of the workshop or training, who do you need to get on board for this, who are the stakeholders. You really need to think through, what is the content of the training going to be. So it's not sufficient to just say, I'm going to do a training on transgender rights. You need to tell me who's going to attend, how you're going to do this, what are the goals, how are you going to measure those goals. Really think it through and be specific and detailed. I'm looking for, 3 to 5 very well thought out strategies or tactics rather than a laundry list. You also need to think about what are the challenges you're going to face in implementing your plan. And you've already done some thinking on this earlier in a couple weeks back and in the discussion about the challenges. But now you're going to be really thinking about it in terms of your specific recommendations. Who are the stakeholders? Who do you need to get buy-in from? Do you need to get management on board? Do you need to get another department involved? Is there going to be funding needed? And who might you get opposition from? What are going to be the challenges? Are there time challenges? Are there people who will push back against this, who might resent this? Are there people who might get hurt in other ways by your strategic plan? So really think about what are going to be the challenges and the hurdles that you're going to face. And then finally explain the strengths of your plan and why it would be likely to succeed. And again, be very specific. It should be relevant to your specific strategies and tactics. It is not sufficient to say that the strength of your plan is that it is a good plan, or that you think people will support it. You need to be able to back it up. Now, you don't need to create these plans whole cloth by yourself. In fact, I strongly recommend that you research to see if somebody has already done the type of strategy for the issue that you want to do. What have other groups done to address this issue? So, for example, if we go back to my example with the library, let's say that I decided that my issue was going to be getting refugees in Baltimore to come into the library. So my target population is the refugee population. And so I set up my goals for my plan. I decide, what I want to achieve. And then I might think, well, what have other libraries done to do outreach to refugee populations? And I can go and look that up and see, have other libraries done outreach programs? What has succeeded? What has failed? What have been the lessons learned? Now, of course, if you use research, then you are going to give credit where credit is due, and say in your plan that you looked at plans from these other groups and give the references that you used. But, again, don't feel like you have to come up with this whole cloth out of your imagination. Use references, use research, use other sources to help guide you. And that would, also goes towards the strengths of your plan. If you can say, hey, this plan has already worked, then it needs, that would, go towards saying that, yes, your plan will be successful. What else do I want to say? Again, my biggest advice to you is be specific, 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 data, data, data. Those are my key words. Again, if you're doing workshops or trainings, describe them. If you're going to use social media, okay, which social media platforms are you going to use? How are you going to use them? Who are you trying to target? What is the message you're trying to get across? How are you going to measure your success with that? If you are doing lobbying, okay, how are you going to do lobbying? Who are you going to lobby? What is it you're asking them to do? Are you asking them to support a bill that's already in play, or are you asking them to come up with a new bill? And what are the goals of the bill that you want implemented? So, make sure that you really think through exactly what it is that you want to do and achieve in this plan. For this assignment, you are going to be putting together a series of PowerPoint slides, and for this one, you do not need to record the narration. You just need to provide speaker's notes. The speaker's notes, my little friend wants to say hello to everybody. This is Monty, and he thinks that anytime I'm sitting that he should be in my lap and involved in whatever I'm doing. Okay, sorry for that interruption. Back to what we were talking about. So for your slides, you do not need to narrate them. You do need to provide speaker notes. The speaker notes do not need to be in paper, they don't need to be paragraphs or full sentences, but there should be enough detail that I can check them against the rubric and make sure that you've met all of the requirements. So, it won't be sufficient to just say, list your tactics and fill in details later. And you need to give me the information so that I can see that you have completed the assignment, and to make sure that you're on track for the final project. Each of these milestones is building up to your final project, so the more work you put into it now, the more detail you give me, the more feedback I can give you so that you'll do better on your final project. And I think that is everything. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And I'm looking forward to seeing your strategic plans. Thank you.